Our space, my space, our space, OneSpaceLove, my space, your space.
Welcome, Carmella Baynie, my beautiful dear friend, to OneSpaceLove podcast. So good to have you.
Really good to be here, and we're literally to run into you.
I know.
In 2 weeks ago, and hadn't seen you for so long, and it was all perfect as ever. We're all kind of creeping out of the woodwork, and it's interesting who we run into and who we're connecting with at this time. You know, it's very interesting,
Isn't it?
Cocooning.
Let's just go straight. I want to go straight in and get you to introduce yourself, and then let's go in and talk about this time, because it is a particular interesting time that we are all experiencing, and definitely showing us who we are in flow with and who we are aligned with at the moment. So could you introduce yourself to the listeners by answering the statement, I am?
I am a fire horse. Last time I checked, 66 baby, born through the revolution, and then, survived the 80s. I had these coexisting relationships with music and spirituality from birth. I started off in the Maronite rite with my Lebanese Christian family, so we used to hear the Mass in Aramaic, and then we had, all the die-hard Latin Mass was going on then. All of our families were having secret Latin Masses in the backyard. Funny, crazy journeys then into the music industry, via Osho in the 80s, and yoga, mad Ashtanga yoga, the tourist attraction of Byron Bay through the 90s. It was a pretty amazing journey. And then from there, somehow the music and, the spirituality kind of morphed together, and I really started kind of walking in that path where both of those hemispheres kind of united, and had a mad kind of 15 years in a kirtan frenzy and Bhakti land, just diving into the depths of sacred India and initiations and amazing journeys. Son is now 20, and here I am like, oh, okay, what's next? Where are we going from here? And really what the universe keeps throwing at me is countless students, just students of both hemispheres. And so I've been doing a lot of teaching these days at the ripe old age of 54, and loving that, somehow just really loving surrendering to it, realizing that I'm probably I am a grandmother now, and what does a grandmother of the tribe do? It's a different journey now, and that's where I'm at, as in a crossroads now, sort of choosing the path that is going to most have meaning, I think, and be of most use to the community.
Yeah.
I think usefulness is something that means a lot to me. Having a role to play in the community is a beautiful thing. Helps the world go round, I think. Rudolf Steiner was just, all about the future being about small little cells that support each other, that stay close to the earth, that, the kids, they know who their local post office man is. They know who, there's this sense of community, and that's kind of where I think my focus is now. Not so much flying around the world, but what can we do here?
Being of value, isn't it? How can you be of value at the moment? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Well, where to go from there? Because, let's just come back to now in these current times. How have you found it, emotionally and as a musician?
Well, as a musician, I've been heartbroken. It's now coming into December, and we're usually gearing up for our big summer festivals or whatever, and we're just kind of waiting, to hear if we can even sing. And, as much as I'm a rebel, I again, trying to support the community and Yoga Australia. We're all, we're working together as responsible citizens, but feeling like very stifled as a musician. Um, it's a real challenge. I did a lot of online concerts this year, which was beautiful. Mantra Mondays, we had some beautiful times there during COVID. But in the end, and I was teaching yoga all week long on Zoom, and I was like getting vertigo and just like
Wow.
reached a point around August where it was just like, can't stare at another screen. It's not the object of music. Um, and so I have been having to really increase for me my sadhana, my meditation.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
take just slow down for the first time, but starting to connect with people who really care about issues that are really important to me, that have been important to me since I was first, in the nursing, when I was nursing, and I saw a lot of malpractice. I'm not the only one who saw a lot of malpractice and misuse of medications, and I do feel that through this whole COVID journey, that we are being forced to look at what our priorities are in health. And I think that a lot of people have missed the point, that a lot of people have been speaking up because they value the health of their children and the children and the health of the planet. So it's been difficult for me, the fear around COVID, the fear around the vaccinations,
Yes.
so many people just can't tolerate vaccinations.
Mm-hmm.
Some can, some can't, so, well, I've seen so much division. I think that was the saddest thing was, someone on my thread making a joke about making Australia great again, and then someone else on my thread jumping on and saying, gee, I didn't know you were Magus, Carmella. Good luck to you. God bless you. Flick, um, I'm Australian. I don't, I'm standing back and I'm watching very carefully, but, both sides have got their pluses and minuses. I don't want to get into politics because
Yeah.
that's a whole other story. But what I'm talking about is how to, the fear factor that came in to the suburbs like a dark cloud, this year. It was terrifying going to the supermarkets and seeing old people struggling and, the terror in their faces, old people not being able to find any sanitizer in the
I
supermarket.
know. Yeah. And
Things.
what, it's about, I think, really people that have had a spiritual practice, what are you drawing upon to help, not, help with that fear that's arising and to help expand that vibration and shift it? What tools were helping you? So was it extending your practice?
Yeah, it was actually, because I think I could have gone and hid under a bushel this year because I
Yeah.
was tired, like we all are from city living. And but actually, what saved me was maintaining the classes that I run a beautiful yoga studio from home
Yep.
in the forest, and just pushing on and maintaining. Okay, we've done 35 years of this practice. Well, what is it if we can't put it into action? Now. So it was like calling on all those what we call the warrior tasks, panic attacks in the middle of the night, stomach churning, all these kinds of things can be worked on using yoga and breath and meditation. And then, the chanting on Monday nights, just the weeks that we didn't do it, it felt so stodgy.
Mm-mm-mm.
Dodgy is the word, like stuck in the mud, stuck in mire, stuck in the body. And those Monday nights when we'd have 2 hours, we just had it on Zoom, had a few people in the room. It was like the next day, it was like waking up on a cloud of heavenly, and it became really clear to those of us who were doing it. It's like,
This is a necessity now.
yeah.
Let's go there to the Bhakti music. Now, you're saying that you grew up and introduced to Osho. What drew you to the Hare Krishna movement? Where was that
Yeah,
shift and introduction? because you are a big part of the Bhakti music industry in Australia, all around Australia, particularly Sydney. You were definitely at the forefront of that movement. And I know myself and Chris Hooper were there, bringing those events to Sydney and Melbourne, and, as well as many people, Kate Little, another beautiful soul that was there. So how were you introduced? Because you were quite heavily into the Hare Krishna movement.
The lights changed. Is it okay?
Didn't you see that? Yeah.
I was obsessed with the Beatles. I grew up I was born
Yes.
And I was in love with George Harrison, and I followed their spiritual journey, and being on a pretty intense kind of, Orthodox Christian journey, but a little kind of rock and roll fan, we were led, to that journey, the Beatles' own spiritual journey. And I think the first, Sanskrit I heard was probably Across the Universe and My Sweet Lord. Across the Universe, I think that came first. And Jai Guru Dev, and there was the attraction to their spiritual journey, but then it didn't really kick in for me until I left home and was at drama school and found the Indian guru, albeit the corrupted, wild Indian guru, straight from the Catholic Church to Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh. I mean, whoa. Anyway, his teachings were extraordinary and undeniably life-affirmingly transforming in every possible way, on every level. Just a little unruly. There was no system, I guess. It was the pathless path that he taught, and it was wild. And it was during that time, I think I blew all my chakras out of the water 1,000,000 times over. We were all living in these mansions in Vaucluse, 25-room mansions, all, spending a little bit on rent each week, and then coming together and meditating 3 times a day and having the most extraordinary parties that were very extraordinary spiritual journey, that whole thing. And that was all in the eastern suburbs, and I was at drama school, but it was so powerful and transforming that I quit drama school and I gave up ambition for the guru. I sensed that ambition was this noose around my neck and it was stopping my, spiritual progress. So I gave it all up and became like an urban bum, a Dharma bum, and took up meditation in a very, very powerful way. So powerful, I think I probably went too far and ended up in Byron like we all did in those days. It was kind of Paddington, Bondi, off to Byron, that was the journey. And back again often when Byron, too much ley line, too many Rajneesh men. Anyway, back to that.
I want some juicy stories here too.
The book. Anyway, so and then my beautiful friend Rachel Zinman, she's a darling yoga teacher from Byron, via New York, another firehorse. She said, "Oh, you've got it." I ended up in the music industry up there. I ended up in bands and full blown. It was just I'd always sang, but I never anticipated a musical career.
Wow.
But singing was so a part of me, and so we had this amazing band up there, and it broke house records. It was called Viva La Bimba, and it was like a 45-piece, incredible, interesting band. We moved from samba to all kinds. We worked with Indian ragas, we were pop, we were dance. It was a pretty special band, and a lot happened at that time. So Rachel introduced me to Dina, the local Ashtanga yoga teacher, and she said, I think you'll love it. I think you'll love it. 10 years later, Ashtanga grabbed me by the throat, really, and all of us, and we burnt out on Ashtanga 2.5 hours a day, 15 years, going through that whole first series, every day as your basics. It was very intense, and again, more chakra blowing But this was all leading to something. I feel like that the journey was kind of cleansing the anatas, you know, the imprints from the scars of the past. And then I had always been very attracted to Krishna and Prabhupada from the 70s when I was given a book by the Haris, and my best friend and I ran up the back and we were reading the Bhagavad Gita like it was contraband, you know, and we saw the picture of the soul, the human being migrating, and the soul through birth and disease, old age and death, and passing through to another birth. All the artwork, actually, this extraordinary spiritual artwork that Srila Prabhupada personally supervised was so, it got us, you know. And but it wasn't until so many years later that after an Ashtanga class, there was the Haris were singing and I was transformed. Then someone taught me to chant, and I was chanting japa, and it transformed my whole body and being. And I think then I just basically, you know, dived into bhakti in a very powerful way. You know, another 15 years and going and finding initiation in Vrindavan and going to Krishna's birthplace. But the music, it was like the music, most unbelievably beautiful devotional music I'd ever heard in my life. And I had to wrap my tonsils around it, you know. And the Sanskrit was attracting me from the first yoga class. It's another sacred language, you know, like Latin, like Hebrew, like Aramaic. They have like the Greek, the Coptic, you know.
Yeah.
So powerful, you know. And then, you know, rediscovering the language of Ireland, the Irish language, all of those languages. So that was it. And I was just like completely lost. And I sort of almost vowed I'd never sing, you know, pop again. And because in the middle of all that, I had a pop career. I had an album on the pop charts. It was
I was going to say, there was a pop career in there, wasn't there?
Yeah, and that was all from Byron. That was like, my manager built a studio, which has ended up becoming a magnificently popular studio, Rocking Horse Studios up in Carmella.
Yes, yep.
Had an amazing crew, and Joanne Peterson, who was at that time, she was In Excess's publishing company. She was developing me. I was on the books with Keith Urban, and she wanted me to, you know, keep things very folky. But then I ended up working with the production team from My Sex, and as we know, you know, they were the first to develop music off the Korg. They were the first, you know, computer games. All of their music was very, very futuristic, but always keyboard based and sequence based.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we just decided to make an album that was like a cross between Enigma, Deep Forest, and it was kind of sitting amongst there, but the pop thing was there too, and I was working with the most beautiful songwriters in the biz, and it was the most unbelievable 15 months, and we got a lot of record deal offers and so on, but a lot happened. Ended up playing music for E Street. That was that really cool.
I remember, yeah.
I remember how soap opera was. It's set in urban Balmain, and wasn't it cool? And,
I was actually, you know, more addicted to E Street than Home and Away, or, you know, it was one of my favourite, I think, just being the age bracket I was.
Yeah, and
there was a male actor in it that was great.
Denny.
Yeah.
Simon Denny cut his teeth on E Street.
Yeah.
They all kind of cut their teeth on. So the production house formed a music production company. And they started like launching like Melissa and like number one hits.
Yes.
To number one, straight to number one after the other, after the other, after the other. And I was next. And they were pushing it as a kind of a pixie. Quite a few record companies were like, no Byron hippies. But they kind of got the picture. They were really pushing it. And just as we were about to launch the TV station axed the series, and the record company went down the tube. So my manager had to form a record company and quickly get us over the line. And it ended up charting as an independent all over Australia. It was in the top 20 in Adelaide, South Australia, and Queensland, and in the top 20 then over in Southeast Asia, Singapore. Oh, gosh, it's such a long time ago. Singapore, Taiwan, Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur, and I went up to Japan, and then I ended up writing songs for Chinese artists. And this was like now in the 90s. And so it was, I was heartbroken because of what happened. And I was like, God, really blew it, but over the years, people from the industry have kind of, encouraged me to pat myself on the back a little bit, because the sales were, I should have been happy. Happy, but I was so hard on myself at the time because, it's the 80s, it's world domination. You think, your managers are all like party animals and they just want everything to be big, big, big. And if it's not, that's the paradigm. That's the paradigm, the patriarchal paradigm that I've had to live with is that, world domination, and it's got to blow your head off, and it's got to be numbers. It's a numbers game.
Numbers game, yeah.
So I had to let go of all that attachment and disappointment. But that's really around that same time as I started chanting a lot. The record company fell apart. Surprise!
Almost
surprise.
like your safety net was the Bhakti music, yeah.
Fully took me away.
Which took you on a whole nother journey, didn't it?
Yeah.
And so did the people, because I come from fashion industry and then went to promoting Bhakti music to world music, but how did you find that the people fell away, or were they still supporting you as you transitioned into this new movement?
Oh, good question, Steffi.
Thank you.
The people fell away.
Yes, same in my world. I'm actually starting to reconnect with some of the fashion, but yeah, it just, once you're not going to the A-list parties and you're in the front row, they start to fall away. Yeah.
It all dropped away. In fact, I had my heart broken many times by, trying to resurrect it with, some of the people that I worked with. And really, I went kicking and screaming, but the universe started throwing all these singing students at me. Like, I honestly say that because that's truly what happened. I think I was in Sydney. I left Byron because I just needed to ground. Doesn't that sound funny? But
actually, Danny Ross popped up on my Facebook feed, and that he was one of your students, wasn't he?
Yeah, still is at the moment, actually.
Oh.
We're having sessions together at the moment. Yeah.
Beautiful.
I had some students who've all been just doing beautiful things. So I had to surrender because there was obviously something I had to share,
Yeah.
Beautiful yogi colleagues, Kate Peterson and wonderful yoga colleagues dragging me into retreats and, really forcing me to, run voice workshops and somehow it all started coming together, all the theatre training in voice and all the early and the classical and everything started coming together into a teaching form, that teaching form, voice in yoga, which is, based so much on my spiritual journey and my spiritual practices, and the combination of them with my art. And so, how the yoga influenced my music, how breathing influenced my voice. I could just, that's a whole other, a whole other, and really wanting, I think, stepping down off those lofty heights of world domination, aspirations, and just going, okay, how can I be of help here?
Service, yeah.
Yeah, service.
Mm. And you very much were of service. I mean, going back, 10 years now, I remember, I'm just thinking one of the first events we did was the Earth Day, 11/11/11. But there was more there was events before then, but that was one of the big events we did. And you dedicated your time to create this choir with all the singers together collaborating on a song. And I remember you were just so welcoming to the idea and the concept, and and that's just one example of how many times you've been of service to the community. supporting younger artists coming through this movement, mentoring them.
Exciting. That's
Yeah.
a really thing. I love it. I love it. And especially women, you know, because the journey, you know, as you know, it's been very male influenced. For
Yeah.
I've had to, you know, even born with 3 brothers and no sisters, and then, you know, and the church was very patriarchal, and then the Osho thing, and then the yoga, and then the hurries. It's all very, very heavy patriarchal. My production team, you know, when I had this album, were all male, and man, it's tough. It's really tough.
Not that we don't love males. I mean, there's some very sensitive, great males in the industry. I just want to say that, but it can be tough. Yeah.
I've dedicated my life to them, so they know I love them. But to find your voice as a woman, even down to musically, even down to, you know, I had a very loud voice, and quite often in the recording process, you know, they'd say, just soften it, just soften it, just soften it, soften it, just turn it down, just turn it down, you know, and it's just the woman's journey, you know, and I think for a lot of women learning and growing up in the industry, you kind of lend yourself to them, and you give your power to them, and you let them teach you and guide you, you know, and that has its pluses and its minuses. And for me now, you know, to step away, when I did those devotional albums, it was just me, my production for the first time, you know, and how did it sound, having taken the production power back again, you know, how did that feel, and how did that sound as a woman, you know? So I really like to encourage the young, you know, women to take their power back, musically and creatively, and to work with other women, and, you know, there's a lot of female producers out there, and it's just a different journey, you know, it's a very different journey.
And listening to that intuition and trusting it, even when you're listening to other people's opinions, just to know that your intuition is a guiding force for you. Yeah.
That's right. And to hold your own in that, like to hold that. And I think it's easier for the younger female generation to trust than it is for our generation to trust. We were taught to second guess, I think, a lot of the time as young girls. You know, we were taught to be polite when we perhaps might have needed to be calling things out. That's the thread that I'm sort of feeling into, that finding our voice as a woman in all ways, you know, in writing, in music, as in the way that we raise our children, in what we allow into the bodies of our children, you know. We need more trust in our feminine intuition.
Yeah.
Trust, once you start, it just gets stronger and stronger and stronger, and the older you get, it just gets even better. And that's the beautiful payoff of getting past 50, is that, you know, it's getting easier.
The wisdom.
Yeah.
Now, I've been alongside you when you've supported some of my favourite Bhakti musicians. What was some of the highlight, because you've been over to play at Bhakti Fest as well. What were some of the highlight moments for you, or some of your, you know, you got to play with Jai Uttal, Dave Street, many. I mean, can you share some moments with us?
Yeah. Actually, I think probably the most beautiful moment for me in Bhakti, modern Bhakti history, apart from all my journeys to India, those things happen like they're not happening even in the world, like they're in the spiritual world. I can't even describe those ones, you know, being in temples that are 5,000 years old, you know, hearing the songs of the residents of these sacred cities is just the most powerful thing for me. But Bhakti Fest, maybe years ago, very hot days, you know, it's in summer and it's in the desert in Joshua Tree. And Joshua Tree has hieroglyphs that are from another civilization. It's been discovered recently, and the stars are just, there's civilizations going on all around you, it's seen and unseen. And with the Saturday night of Bhakti Fest, and there's, I don't know, 15, 20,000 peeps. And there's Krishna Das, just Krishna Das and his harmonium and his shirt, in the dust. And all of the beautiful bhakti community of musicians all sitting in the wings, right? And it's like 103 degrees and it's still, and the desert air, and Krishna Das just in his full humility with his head down and his full attention to the chant, his full attention to the mantra. It was mind-blowing for all of us, and I don't think any of us will ever get over the potency and how you can feel that it carved into the ether. Spiritual love was carved into the ether around us. And
I can say that again. I love that.
Spiritual love was carved into the ether around us, because that's what happens with these prayers. They're so potent. The Sanskrit is particularly all of it, but the Sanskrit that I'm talking about is so potent that it carves the sediment out of our heart. It gets in there. It gets in there by sound, because sound vibration penetrates matter. So when the sound vibration is heard by the ears, it literally comes in. Now, why is it? I'm describing it almost like a physical thing. Because sound vibration penetrates matter, imagine what sacred sound vibration does. So we all know the sound of a drill at the dentist, or the bloody leaf blowers.
Yeah.
Saturday morning, and how they, so it gets in. We know that sound gets in. But when we
experience those irritating noises, we understand that vibration hits us on a cellular level. Yeah.
Yeah. And the polyvagal theory of, breath work and meditation and yoga and chanting, taking us into the, oh gosh, it's gone from my head. Anyway, the calm state, it'll come.
Parasympathetic nervous system,
Yes, parasympathetic nervous system.
Yeah.
So that makes sense, because the vagus nerve wraps around the back of the throat. That's not a sign, and then it connects, instigates, initiates, and comes right down into the gut.
The pelvis, yeah.
It happens in the gut, and whatever we're thinking in the head will reflect in the gut, So when we're praying prayers that have literally descended from the spiritual platform, like all spiritual languages, they do have an otherworldly constitution, and so they're pure, and we're like Jiva soul, we're a little bit human, a little bit divine, a little bit devil, a little bit divine. But when we hear these prayers, they actually come in like an earworm. And the blessings, because of the purity and the Shakti, the life force, it waters the seed of love in the heart. And we have those samskaras from lifetimes, I believe. We see that, don't we? When we look at our children, we see that something has been brought in,
Yes.
Someone like your little Sienna, she's a little singing angel, she always had that.
She always had it, yeah.
Yeah. So that's the power of that feeling of the purification effect of these practices, and how I don't think I would have survived this here without them. Most definitely say I would not have survived this year without them. Yeah.
I mean, I remember when I was giving birth to the twins, I was chanting Krishna Das's Hare Krishna. So that actually literally turned Alex, who was stuck, he actually turned around while I was chanting and came out, much to the doctor's surprise. So, yeah, very powerful. And I love how you're sharing it for everyone, because not all the listeners know what bhakti music is, and as a definition, that it's a whole nother genre in the music industry that is
Yeah.
becoming more mainstream now and more recognized.
Yes, and but it's interesting because I've come through, a bit of a journey where, I found a lot of disappointment in the temples and the churches and all the institutions, and
Yes.
kind of have come
Go there a little bit, what happened in that.
well,
Yeah.
days. I just came up against that, I guess, that patriarchal construct again, duh. What was I thinking? Of course, it's bound to be there where there's a god or a goddess or some kind of representation of God on earth, where human beings will then build an institution around it. And then sort of that became a little unsavory to me. On every single one of my religious journeys, I've come upon a point where one has to compromise. And that compromise you see in religions where they're becoming corporations now. They are corporations. And there's always going to be an incredible sense of compromise when anything that represents God starts to turn it into a business,
or a power above others.
Yes, and authority. Business and authority. And I'm an old lady now. I just want to work it out for myself. And that sense of feeling like I need to represent. I've always had that sense of feeling like I need to represent. And that has kind of been taken from me now, which I'm happy about, because I just want to now tell stories, and I just want to come back to who I was before all of the spiritual fanfare. That sense of bearing your heart in front of an audience and showing your love for, the divine in front of the audience is very intense. It's very, very intense. And I kind of this year, pulled it back to just my spiritual practice. And that was very, very powerful. And then as a result, I'm writing a lot of songs in English and, just exploring the story, of divine love in my heart and my relationship to the earth.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. So it sounds like, for a majority of your life, you were seeking and you found different institutions. What have you, where are you at now with God and divine universe, all these words? Where does that reside for you now?
Yeah, it's residing in a very grounded way. It's like chopping wood, collecting water. Keep it simple. Connect to the song lines of our native
ancestors,
our First Nations people, and honouring spirit of place and trying to facilitate community, and my vegetarianism, and just the quieter ways of expressing my spirituality. Still getting up in the morning and having lighting a candle and having some really deep chants, just me.
Yeah, so what are some of your practices, Carmella, that you still carry through from all those different, lineages that you learned? What are some things now that you do in a daily practice to keep you so useful? You said old lady, and I would say I would say a very youthful lady here. I mean, radiating, not old lady. Let's remove that. Cancel, delete.
All right, we'll wait till I'm 60 for that.
Yeah, no, I don't think we need to use that. I remember being at your birthday. I think that would have been. Would that have been was a big 50th? One? Yeah.
Yeah. And that was beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm loving being older. I'm loving it. So the question was
What daily, so some of the practices that you carry through now daily?
Well, I always do a puja before I teach my yoga classes, and that's just been a beautiful thing. I'm offering up the class, or offering up the fruits of the
So
class.
explain puja to us, to the listeners.
So it's an offering. So on your altar, you can have whatever significant um, persons, representations of God that mean something to you. That can be anything. For me, I have a very, very intense collection of I guess
Deities.
the divine that I honor, and that I've got my beautiful picture of Christ, whom I grew up loving as a little Catholic. I had very powerful experiences with Christ, and I feel Christ's reincarnation on at this time quite powerfully. There's my beautiful deities of Krishna and Radha. There's my beautiful Ganapati, Ganesh. I have beautiful pictures of teachers past, and I also offer with flowers, fragrant flowers from the garden. I offer with beautiful incense, perfumes, candle flames, and sing specific mantras for morning. A lot of Gayatri, because Gayatri is very powerful at sunrise. We're doing a lot of work with Gayatri mantra at our sunrise classes. It's sunrise, lunchtime, and sunset. Just like the Angelus. When we were at Catholic school, we had to stand up and sing the Angelus. So it just has continued on for me, that rhythm of some kind of singing. But the thing that really I think saved me was forest this year. Like, just dived into the forest every day and, explored this amazing forest around here at Ku-ring-gai National Parks and down at Barara Waters, going down really, really early down to the Barara Waters at, about 5 o'clock in the morning, and then taking the beautiful walk beside the river, chanting japa. And so I just do it that way now, less formalized, and more, where I can and as part of my daily life, trying to offer my food, trying to play spiritual music wherever I can, feeling a prayer of gratitude in my heart. Connecting to the earth is just, so important. Earthing, I just felt for our friends in Manhattan, Melbourne.
Melbourne, yeah.
Unbelievable. I probably would have been wrestling with my sanity time and time again if I wasn't able to get my feet in the earth this year. And just little groups, making sure that the yoga community in this area isn't alone, finding ways to connect and connect to the elderly in the community. That was another really big one. So, a lot of lonely people.
The desert winds are calling you back home. Sweet, sweet silence speaks. The desert winds are calling you back home. Sweet silence.
You were telling me before we went live, what is the significance of this piano?
My ex-husband Dale Neuer is a wonderful, amazing, extraordinary composer. He was kind of one of the first new age composers that came out of the 80s, and I guess what you'd call his style neoclassical, And but his mother was quite a celebrated pianist, and this was her. She used to play it.
Oh, beautiful.
She played it for about 25 years, and then Dale used it a lot for recording, and we've broken up, and he's moved on, and I'm babysitting it.
Nice.
We'll see where it wants to go.
Yeah.
I've just set up the studio. I've just set up my office as a studio, so I can start actually recording on my own from my studio now,
Nice.
which is a really exciting journey. I sort of I recorded the Our Father in Aramaic last Christmas, which is the language of my grandfather. That's along the lines of the next devotional album I make. It's going to be very still and really a reflection. Even, you know, post-menopause, my voice has dropped down a lot, you know, and I'm recording down in that kind of deeper place, deeply prayerful kind of place at the moment, and I'm really enjoying it. And it's a reflection of coming in, you know, into my feminine power and translating that musically, from my roots. It was really beautiful to record in Aramaic. My grandfather used to sing it all the time. We'd go walking along the farm. He used to have cows, and he would just sing, had his hands behind his back, and he'd just sing all the Aramaic prayers. We just used to run and listen to him, and it was always like a powerfully purifying kind of peaceful energy, you know, his voice. I love to hear men singing to God. It's something so special about it. You know, they transcend all, in a sense, they transcend that masculine.
The masculinity, don't they? Yeah, totally.
Yeah, there's a word in Sanskrit, prakriti. Prakriti.
Prakriti, yeah.
Spirit. The spirit is essentially feminine, and so when you see men in spiritual practice, it's very beautiful for us as women to see men integrating, you know.
And ascending. Yeah, I really resonate with what you're saying, because you really start to see a softness about them. And then you go on tour and you see a whole other side to them.
Tour stays on tour, doesn't it, sister?
Yes, had some experiences. But yeah, once you see them up on the stage and they're holding that space, there's a real softness about them.
Yeah, it's beautiful. What the world needs now is more singing.
What the world needs now is more singing. Yes, they do. Yes. Tell us now, well, you've had some incredible students as a vocal coach, as we were speaking, one of the many things that you offer. Tell us about some of the students that people can recognize, and then now what you're doing with this training.
Yeah, well,
I mean, if you're allowed to say, what are the artists that you've supported? And
I think so. So that teaching kind of happened when I moved back from Byron in about 96, 97, and I was blessed to stay in my beloved grandmother's house in Wurrunga. And so I put one little ad out, you know, and then just word of mouth, kids just started tumbling in from all of the local amazing schools around there. And, you know, when you're in a suburb where the arts are really celebrated and there is some ability to be able to support the arts in your children's life, it's great, you know. It was just, we just had kids traipsing through all afternoon, every night of the week, weekends, and I would just spend my days just going around and watching the Stedfords, and it was just a beautiful thing, actually. And then, oh, there goes my smoothie. I'm so excited, I just spilled my smoothie. And then I ended up moving to Avalon and Barrenjoey High, which is a pretty famous kind of rock and roll school.
Yeah.
And I taught Angus Stone in year 11 and 12. So he was already very, very clear about his path. You know, he was a man of very few words, very quiet. But he and Julia Stone played together a lot back then, and we used to have some very fun gigs. And then he went on to do amazing things. And then I taught Rainey Blake, who is an amazing singer, Eric Larson's daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Lisa Pearce, beautiful actress, and in her time, is their mother. She has just, well, she's in LA, and she just finished filming as a character on Nashville, which was just amazing to watch.
Mm.
And through the Lionsgate album, a record company, she recorded her first album.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really amazing. And her brother Jesse is someone I taught for quite a number of years through the HSC, and he was always very skilled in blues. He's now, Jesse Redwig, an extraordinary young gun on the Australian blues scene. And I just went to see him playing a couple of weeks ago for the first time in about 10 years, and I was just
Wow.
And then the beautiful Danny Ross, who I've
Yeah.
worked with and continue to work with at the moment, who's a very inspired, gifted, beautiful,
Such a gifted artist, yeah.
extraordinary artist. Extraordinary.
And it really is the tone of the voice, isn't it? Just resonates with your heart. Yeah.
Yeah, well, a deeply spiritual man, as well. A deeply sensitive and spiritual man that reflects in his voice.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. And so now you're offering these again. This is where you'll be dedicating some more of your time.
Yes, yes. So,
beautiful. So how can people support you and connect with you with this?
Well, you can connect with me either via Instagram or Facebook, and Carmella Baynie is my music page. And I'm offering all kinds of sort of situations at the moment where I've got a workshop, beautiful Sacred Sounds workshop coming up on the 22nd of November in Sydney. And then I'm running 6-week courses online at the moment, individual one-on-one 6-week courses. And that will give you everything that you need to take away a beautiful and strong relationship with your voice if you need it for speech or singing. We cater for every occasion. We've got some beautiful practices and techniques that are incredible in opening up the voice and discovering all the different layers and dimensions of the voice and finding power and learning how to use your voice in a way that you can use it endlessly and it's not going to clap out on you, which is a very,
it's a very common thing, especially in the Bhakti music, isn't it? They can burn it out, the vocal cords. Yeah. I don't know what the exact word is, but pop it or
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I used to lose my voice all the time in the music industry because we do hours and hours and hours of playing and the drum kit right next to your head and, hours in the studio and everyone's smoking all over you. And it was actually getting up and doing yoga every morning that would restore my voice. It literally restored my voice. Like I would go to bed sometimes without a voice, wake up without a voice, do yoga, have a voice.
Thank you for the gentle reminder because gentle reminder. Thank you. Get up and do my yoga practice again.
Everything, circulatory, respiratory, eliminatory, nervous. Just like I said, I don't like to represent anymore, but I can't help but tout the glories of yoga for the body's instruments. So, it saved me during pregnancy. It's just, I want to be 97 and be able to tie up my own shoelaces.
Well, it's integrating the body, mind, soul, and yoga does that very well because we're able to come back into the body, whereas a lot of us are walking around in the head and not in the heart. And the yoga helps us come back into that space, doesn't it?
Yeah, any kind of embodied movement, sacred dance, just movement, finding the flow in the body, knowing when we're stagnant, knowing when we're
where the blocks are,
knowing where we're stuck and listening to our body and sending love and opening it up and feeling. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing with all of the struggles that we have. It's very hard to feel. to stay with pain, as we know, to be present to pain, to be so present that you're not going off and, doing all these other things to avoid the pain.
Mm-hmm.
But going, okay, today I feel like, shite. I'm going to get on the mat and see what my body's trying to tell me.
So well said.
The only time, yeah, might be the only time in the day you get to really listen to your body. And yeah, it's something we need to remember about staying present. I think that's the big one. Excuse me.
No, that's okay.
Yeah, presence. Scary.
Staying in the present moment is a big one, and yeah, yoga is a great reminder when you're in each movement that you're in the present moment.
Yeah, and to just watch the stuff, just to watch it. So often a lot of grief comes up when we're doing this kind of work because we're mobilizing that stagnant energy, which is what sound healing does. It breaks up the crystallization of the auric field, that comes, like we've got liver anger, it doesn't just sit there, it emanates, that liver anger, especially in spring. and what do we do with that? We just sit on it,
Sit and watch Netflix and eat our ice cream and drink alcohol and smoke. And it festers, doesn't it? And it
grows things.
I mean, yeah.
Mold, like literally.
Yeah, I mean, it's not funny. It grows mold and it smells and you want to get rid of it. But I mean, it's a great reminder. I remember being, I had a very Ashtanga teacher down in Melbourne, and, I just used to show up on that mat, and there was many days that I was just in tears on the mat, and it was okay because that was the space where I was able to grieve and to let it all out, And she used to explain it as we're wringing the organs out of all the toxins. So, side twist, we're getting those organs and twisting them and letting all the gut come out, all the yucky stuff, And
if you look at Eastern movement-based psychology, I guess it's like every organ has an intelligence. Like, the stomach is absorbing, it's not just absorbing food, it's absorbing, it's how, how do you stomach things? How you can stomach what's going on around you, The pancreas and the spleen, they're all about the sweetness, wanting sweetness and needing, that
Oh, totally.
And,
I mean, anyone that's craving sugar, pancreas is off balance. Yeah, always comes up, doesn't it?
Yeah, and then the kidneys is about your personal power and your energy, and your life force. And the kidneys connect to your hearing and they're both even the same shape. It's very interesting, the organs are sacred and they have organs for people too, Organs have a beautiful role to play, and we need to nourish them and nurture them.
Another beautifully said, Carmella Baynie. Well, I mean, I could talk to you for hours. It was, as you said, we literally bumped into each other, and I was on the opposite side of the road, and there was some, spirit within me was guiding me to look to the right, and you had your back to me in someone's property. So I was just magnetized, and I remember walking up to you and you turned around, and then we realized what that moment was all about. So
yeah, it was beautiful. It was
divine. And I actually, I had just come from a sound healing. So
the angels were hooking you up. And,
my vibration was expanding. So I will share all the links, and It is beautiful to chat with you today. Is there anything else you want to share to
Yeah, I think because it's NAIDOC week, I would very much like to honour all the elders past, present and future from this land and from the land where you're standing, and to, I guess to say that um, the quest for reciprocity still continues.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I still don't know much at all, but I know that I, made a song back in the 90s that was very much about I sense my shame and my grief around our First Nations people. I realized in hindsight that it wasn't my story to tell, but I still wrote that song, Sweet Silence, and we actually released that and put it on the charts. Um, and looking back, I probably might have done it differently or chosen different words at the time, but we did what we knew
Yeah.
at the time, and so my respect for First Nations people of this country continues to grow, and my inquiry, and I guess as Australians, this isn't our soil. I went to Ireland, last year and the year before, and I realized, our Indigenous roots are a long way from here. My Lebanese family's roots are a long way from here. My Anglo-Saxon family's roots are a long way from here, the Irish and the Scottish and the English. And, I just, in my humble heart, I hope and pray that we can continue to strengthen reciprocity and our relationship between us tawdry whites. Is that the word, tawdry?
Beautifully said. Yeah.
Tawdry whites and our wonderful First Nations people, so we can live and grow and learn how to look after this land.
Yeah. To respect and nurture this land.
Yeah.
Beautifully said. It's beautifully said. And I know we're both going to be coming up to see Anya Tyrrell, who is a beautiful woman who is also making an impact, speaking and sharing with her gifts and her voice about this as well. So, yeah,
Absolutely.
that is coming up very soon in Sydney.
Excited about that. We love her storytelling. I actually managed to sit in on her cyber concert with her father.
Yes.
On Sunday.
Yeah. Saturday night, wasn't it? Or
Sunday morning Aussie time.
Yes. Yep.
It was absolutely enchanting. His songs, both of them, of course, was just gorgeous. And Ireland, I think, is my new spirit home. It's safe, it's understated. You can just get on with your spiritual life quietly and unassumingly, and the music, and the waters are just flowing everywhere, and the history, the beautiful time. Like when I last went, I got to experience that time of Ireland, which was the Celtic spirit, the Celtic Christian marriage before the Romans came in and slayed a lot of them. Excuse me. There was this time in history where the Druids embraced Jesus. Everyone knew who he was. Everyone knew England. He travelled. He travelled up those isles and Spain, and it's all documented. And I got to experience that part of history in Ireland, Saint Bridget. Bridget the goddess, and got to experience the Bridget wells, the sacred wells, and got to pray there, and got to go to the Neolithic passage tombs. 5,000 years old, same era as Krishna, just over land,
over land and country.
Yeah. And just the relationship between the Irish and Australia is extraordinary, and the relationship between the Irish religious and our First Nations orphans was very, very powerful as well. Mostly nothing but amazing stories about the Irish nuns who looked after the children, the incredibly beautiful stories, actually. So yeah, this whole journey with Ireland, and then connecting with Anya just after we were on the Aran Islands at the same time, and I'd never met her, and she was making this incredible music, and I was singing on the island around the time. So yeah, all very exciting, and I feel very excited about women supporting women.
Well, I think, this wraps it up, because we started our conversation with how important these times are, and, moving with the flow of who you're connected with, and what your purpose is now, and how you're going to show up, what is your intention. So I think it's a beautiful wrap up, that these women now stepping up and sharing their gifts and their voice for a purpose, with an intention.
Yes, and that thing about not being polite anymore, finding that raw truth and allowing it to bubble up and transforming it into art and service and uninhibited,
without apologies. Yeah,
raw power. And I'm not talking about cacao. We love cacao.
We've had some cacao moments, but you're not talking about that kind of power. You're talking about, being vulnerable and,
unlimited.
Uncensored.
That love is unlimited. That love and self-expression are one. That we are made of love, and that when we speak, it's all love, all of it. Let's not be afraid of the volcanoes, the earthquakes, as much as we love those gentle streams and pastures and the beauty. We also love about Mother Earth is her ability to churn it up, and transform. And all those goddesses, including Bridget, the triple-headed goddess, she was a goddess of communication. And so she had the sword, and she, that like Durga, they have the sword of truth, and they slash through the illusion. That in that divine aspect, and we learn from that. Slash through the bullshit and get to the truth,
and get to the heart of it, the truth.
Yeah.
Well said.
Yeah.
Thank you, Carmella Baynie.
Thank you, Steffi. It's just been beautiful.
Well, thanks for listening. That was Carmella Baynie. And please support OneSpaceLove podcast and the YouTube channel by hitting the subscribe button, sharing it with people, and following the podcast on all the channels that you listen to podcasts. Thanks for listening to Carmella Baynie. There are so many more episodes coming out soon, and I look forward to sharing more with you. I'm Steph Pappas, and this is OneSpaceLove podcast.
Our space, one space love, my space, your space.